I got a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you make an array and then call it in at a later time down forward? Because I'm making an array and obviously in PHP, and then when I go to use it, well, because I put it in first and then my HTML later on, it puts it in the wrong spot. And unless I embed the PHP in the HTML, I can't get it to the right spot. So I was thinking maybe I could make it into an array that I can call forward with a variable later on.
Well, you can actually do both of those tasks. If you declare the array, you should be able to access it anywhere on the rest of that page.
Okay.
That shouldn't be a problem. But as we will see, actually, it's in chapter 11 next week, I think. You'll see that we could do some terrific things with generating HTML and so on with an array as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, let's get started then. This chapter is chapter 9. It's all about strings, how to work with strings. And it covers an enormous number of string functions. And don't feel overwhelmed by them. Don't think that you have to memorize them all. Just what we want you to grasp out of this chapter is there are all kinds of methods that you can use to work with strings, to manipulate them, get substrings out of them, etc. And you can just look them up if you have to. Okay, that's the thing to do. I would say look them up if you have to. And a good place to do that is at php.net. And if I click it right here, here's all my string functions down the left-hand side of the page. And as you can see, look at them all. There's a ton of them.
Wow.
Yeah. You can do just about anything you want with strings. And by the way, it's a pretty good one-line explanation of what each function does here as well. So just be aware that they're out there, that you can use them. And we'll look at some of the most common ones here tonight. So I'm going to take a look at the document. Here's the document for this chapter, the Word document. And I'll just blow it up a little bit here. First function we're going to look at is trim. The trim function will take away any leading and trailing white space. For some reason, some people, whenever they type something into a text box on a web page, some people will always tap the spacebar before they start typing. I don't know where the habit comes from, word processing or whatever, but anyway, we often do not want to store a space with the person's name, for example. And so you can use trim. You can use L-trim and R-trim as well to get rid of the trailing and leading spaces that might be around a string. So just to make sure that you get only the string that you want, you can use various forms of the trim function. Chop is an alias for trim. Kind of weird that PHP does that, but it's not unusual that there are two functions that do the same thing, and chop is an example. It's this very same thing as rtrim. And I think we have one example of that here. Here's the trim function. It's in example 1. So this is in the example zip. If you take that zip and unzip it, you'll see a folder there. And if you copy that folder into your htdocs folder, you should be able to execute it. My apologies, Adolfo. I am doing it in NetBeans here.
It's all right. I can follow along.
And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run each of these one at a time, though. So here we go with the run file. Shift F6 will run the file. So there's the output from this particular file. And as you can see, there's 13 characters here. That's what the output is for the string length, strlen. That'll tell you how many characters are in a string. But after we trim it, we get rid of the leading and trailing white space, and so we end up with just 9 characters after that. And ltrim is only going to trim out the leftmost 2 spaces, so we get a length of 11. rtrim does the same thing. rtrim is going to trim out those spaces on the trailing end of the string, and so it's also going to be 11. And we can also do something with trim. We can specify a second argument with trim, and we could trim particular characters if we want. So if, for example, we have the silly string here, hello, and if we want to specify a second argument, we can trim out those characters out of the string. So we get actually he gets rid of the L's and the O's. If I just get rid of the O's, I'll get a bad word. I'll just save that and refresh this page. That didn't work, though, did it? The refreshing didn't work. I guess I have to run it again. I'll run it one more time. Oh, I wanted to get rid of the O, not the L. My bad. So you can see it now says hell. Okay, so that's kind of a crazy thing you can do with a second argument and get rid of whatever characters you specify. And if we put E and L, we just end up with a capital H. If we had E, L, and O in here. Okay, so that's trim. Second one we want to look at is string 2. And this one is, it's all about the fact that, as you know, a /n will cause a new line in Python if you're outputting to the screen, but it doesn't work in HTML. A /n doesn't cause a new line in HTML. To get a new line in HTML, you need a breakTag, BR. Well, the NL2BR function will change a new line to a break. That's what that stands for. NL, new line, BR, break, new line to break. So when we run this one, it will actually, there it is, without the, just as it's typed in here, $line, but here it is with new line to break operating. It's converting the new lines to breaks. And in fact, if I view this page source, you can see that there are break tags here. Okay, so that's new line to break. Now here's something that you can do. There's a special function called printf, which allows you to do 2 things. You first specify a format string, and in that format string, you use percent specifiers, which are placeholders for variables that'll be displayed at that location. %s is a placeholder for a string. So we're going to get a string there and a string there. %d is a placeholder for an integer. Now we have to match those in the right type and in the right order. So this has to be a string, this has to be a string, and this has to be an integer. And of course, as you can see up here, it is. If we want to get a floating point number, we use %f, and we can specify the decimal places with a 0.4, so that'll show 4 decimal places. And you can even use very complicated strings like this down here in the at the end of the program. We've got an integer here, a floating point number here, and another one here. So this is an integer, this will be a floating point calculation, and so will this. So when we run this one, it looks like this in the output. That's the work here. Oh, where's that running? Oh, it's off the page. Bring it back. We'll run it one more time. There it is. Be okay with that printf? Now, by the way, this one here was sprintf. Sprintf means print to a string. S for string. So it's like printf, but instead of generating output to the browser window, you're actually generating a string, which you can then output later. So you can develop the string this way with sprintf and then output it later. That's very useful. I put a break tag in this one so that this string came out on 2 lines. Are you okay with why that's working the way it does? %s for string and %d for an integer, %f for a floating point number, a number with decimals. Okay there? If that's all right, we'll carry on. Here's number 4. Now here's a Redux program. This is the first time I think that we've seen what's called Redux, a page that calls itself. Look at our form tag down here. We've got a form tag, and the action is the name of this file itself. Where the method is post, but this particular file is going to call itself. When we submit the form, it'll run this page again. But what we're using here is if the user value has been set, and down here you see we have a user text box. If the user value has been set, we will test it to see if it's set to Sarah, and if it is, we'll say hello, Sarah. So when we run this one, we see something like this. We can put anything we want in here. Of course, I'll try Henry. Doesn't say hello, Henry. But if we try Sarah, it says hello, Sarah. Okay, so if the user field has been set, if there's a value in the user value in the post array, then it's going to run this code. If not, it runs the form without it. That's called Redux, and it's kind of a nifty thing that you don't need necessarily 2 files to execute and process a form. Let's look at number 5. This one is very similar. This time, we're looking to see if it's not empty. If the user is not empty, we'll say hello, user. If, however, it is empty, then we're going to run this code down here. And this time, we're using another way of doing Redux. This is also Redux, but instead of using the name of the file itself, we're using a special environment variable, $PHP_self, and that means this page itself. So that'll run this page again. So once again, this is a Redux. So when we run it, we get very similar output to the previous one. And this time, it doesn't matter what we put in here. It's going to say hello and whatever name we put in. Everybody okay with that one? If it's not empty, remember that's your not logical operator. If not empty, the user value in the post array, then display the username.
Yeah.
Take a look at number 6. This is another way of doing if and else. This time, we're doing if and else. As you can see, I've got the if empty the user field from the submission of the array, or of the form, I should say. If it's empty, show the form. If it's not, show the username and also the length of using string length. We'll see the length of the name. So it's kind of similar to the last one. Let's run that one. Try Frank this time. Frank has 5 characters. Try it again. We'll try Frankie. Frankie's got 7 characters. And the string function here, of course, is string length. Let's take a look at number 7. Stop me now or ask a question at any time. This time, we're going to look at a different syntax that you can use to do if and else with your PHP. You'll notice I have if up here, but instead of an opening curly brace, there's a colon. And then the end of the PHP tag. And then we have some just pure HTML, except for here. This is going to be another example of a Redux program. Now here's the else block starting with a colon. And it finishes with an end if and the semicolon. That actually finishes the statement. So it's all one big statement, really. One big PHP statement. And this one runs very similar to the other ones. Operationally, it's very much the same. We'll try Sarah. Pretty similar to the last one, except a different way of doing if and else. Let's go to number 8. There's another Redux. This time we're using if and else, but this time we're using curly braces. Now the if block starts right there, and here's where it ends. And then we're going to start an else block to output this information here. So if the form is empty, then display the form. If it's not empty, display this output. That's the concept of Redux. Now we're going to enter a book title in all lowercase here, so let's give it a run. We'll go with the girl with the dragon tattoo. And there's the output. Now what we're doing here, we're using UC words. UC words function will uppercase the first letter in each word in the string. So as you can see the way it came out, all the words capitalized. UC first only uppercases the first letter in the string, the entire string. This uppercases the entire string, and this lowercases the entire string again. So you've got some wonderful functions that you can use with strings in PHP. A lot of control. I particularly like that UC words one. That's pretty interesting. Great for titles of any kind. Let's look at number 9. Once again, another Redux example. This time, if not empty, so if the field called input in the form is not empty, then we're going to display what that is. And we're also going to add slashes to it. This is something that you should do if you're going to save it in a database. You don't want to save quotation marks or special escape characters in a database string. And so we're going to use add slashes to escape them. It'll escape those control characters. When you're reading it back again, you can use strip slashes to get the slashes out again. So if we run this one, to make this work, it's awfully small here, so we can get that a little bit bigger for you. To try this, here we have quotations twice here. So when I submit that, here's what happens. That's escaping. It escapes of the quotes. And that's a good thing to do because there could be a malicious escape character that you don't want to store in your database. But you can get it back again with strip slashes when you read it out of the file or out of the database. And that's commonly done. How are we doing? Let's try number 10. Number 10, if you're okay, I'm just going to keep carrying on. Now, here's a little bit about arrays. There are two functions that are very useful with strings and arrays. We actually cover arrays in detail next week. But to create an array is like a list. If you remember your Python, a list was a set of values with one name. Well, that's what it's called, an array in most other languages, and PHP is an example of that. Here we have an array of strings. I stacked them up here to make it easy to read and see that we have different values, different strings separated by commas. Well, if we run implode and specify a separator, what we want to implode is this array, $array, and we're going to store it in a variable called $quote. That makes a string from the array. And if we then use UC words, that should uppercase each word in the entire string that's being created. Now, the opposite of that is explode. Explode will tackle a string and create an array from it. And particularly if you can specify a separator, you want to explode something that's separated by spaces, such as a sentence, and you would do it this way with the separator of a space. And then we're going to output the element in the array with an index of 2. That should actually be the third word. It should come out with what, I believe. Let's take a look, see if that is in fact the case. We run this one. Yeah, there it is. You can see that the UC words did work. We capitalized the first letter in each word, and we did get what here as the element with the index of 2. So implode creates a string from an array. Explode does the opposite, creates an array from a string. Now, you can use this very nicely with text files. Like you could have, quite commonly, this vertical pipe character is used to do an explode if you're working on a text file. Just to show you a quick example of that. Let's see if I can make another variable here. Let's say we had dollar data equals about Henry pipe symbol 12 Elm Street pipe symbol, and go with Dunedin as a city. Okay, so just a very simple string there. Well, we could now explode this using the separator of this symbol, and we can get a 3-element array. Let's try. We'll go data 2 equals explode using the separator of the pipe symbol, and what we want to explode is the dollar data array. So that this should be an array which is created from these, and we could verify that, I suppose, with a quick for loop. We could say for each, actually. For each. Actually, I think I'll use a for loop. It'll be easier. For $I equals 0, and arrays start indexing at 0. $I is less than $data2, dot size. That's the that'll give us the length of the array. Size of. Actually, it should be size of data 2, since it's a function. Size of $data2, and then finally $I plus plus. And what we could do with that, sorry, that's supposed to be an I, $I plus plus. And then if we open a curly brace, we should be able to echo those out to the screen. So we could echo $data2 square bracket $I, and what we could do is add a break onto the end of that, the break tag onto the end, and let that be a line of output in the HTML. So I think we should be able to get at these 3 pieces of data, since it shows you how explode can work very nicely. Let's see if that'll work okay for us. Yeah, there it is right there. Henry, 12 M Street, Dunedin. Each on its own line. So explode is terrific. It allows you to create an array from a string, and you specify the separator that you want to use. And that's a good separator to use because it's rarely found in a string or in a sentence. Okay, let's move on from there if you're okay with that. We'll go to number 11. And once again, we have a redux. We have a form down here, but the form will not, if this field in the form is not empty, if it's been submitted, then we're going to print it out. And then we're also going to use string to k, which is string token, really. A good way to look at that is string toke, because we're going to be breaking this up into an array, but we're going to do it piece by piece inside of a loop. So each time, it doesn't do it all at once like explode does. It does it step by step, and we'll do that step by step inside of a loop here. So we'll give this one a run. We need to put some sort of a phrase in here. Try, why would you want that? And there's the output. We tokenized the string into its individual tokens, tokens being separated by the space in the sentence. But we could specify any other separator that we wanted to do the splitting or the tokenizing. I hope you're okay with that. Let's take a look at the next one.
There's a question in a chat window from the previous one.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So nothing has to be in between them. Danilo, thank you for that question. That's for number 11? Or number 10? This one here?
I think it was for that one.
Yeah. Well, what is in between them is the pipe symbol. This is what we're using to do the splitting. We're splitting the string on this character. I mean, it could have been something else. We could have split on three asterisks if we wanted to. It's split on, just depends whatever we're trying to read. We just have to specify that that's what we want to split on. If I run that one again, you'll see that this works as well. There it is. Okay, so you just specify whatever separator you want. Hope that helps, Daniel. Okay. All right. So number 12. Now this is a very powerful one, the substring function. The substring function can be used in various ways. One way is to specify the string that you want to analyze, and the 15 means start reading characters at position 15, index 15. A string is indexed starting at 0. Every character in a string has an index, and the first character in the string is index 0. And so this means start reading characters at index 15 and read through to the end of the string. But you can also use it with two values. You can specify a start value, a start index, and then how many characters you want to read after that start index. And then finally, you can also use a negative value to start reading that many characters from the end of the string. So that should read the last 4 characters in the end of the string. Now I've chosen those numbers 15, 7, 8, and -4 carefully based on what I've got in the string here. Just the name of former President Bush, now deceased recently, dear departed. So I'm going to try running that program with that value. And when we submit, you'll notice this is what we get from 16 characters on. Right here is character 15 and onward. This is starting at 7 and reading 8. And this is the last 4, using the -4 value. So substring is a very powerful function that you can use on strings. You can read at a particular point from there through to the end of the string, or you can start at a particular point and read a certain number of characters from there. We could add another one here. What about just doing I better do it at the end. Otherwise, I'm going to be running into spacing issues here, so I'll do it at the bottom. What if we did echo substring? Echo substring, and we'll take the entire dollar input. But what if I wanted to read just the George out of George Herbert Walker Bush? What would I start at? Anybody?
0.
Yeah, exactly. I want to start at a 0. And then where would I want to stop? Well, let's see. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see what happens with 5. Missed 1 letter. So it only reads 5. So in other words, to get the entire George here, this had to be a 6. Try it again. And we should get the full name. George. There it is. Okay, so you got great control on extracting parts of a string with the substring function. All right, we're on number 12 here. More examples of, I'm sorry, that was number 12, it's number 13. Now, we can compare strings with string compare, strcmp, but we can also compare them case insensitively. That'll do a case insensitive compare. In other words, it won't care if you forget to uppercase the first letter in somebody's name. And then you can also do this kind of strange thing where you can do a natural ordering comparison, and you can even do that case insensitively. So let's give this one a try. I'm going to try using Okay, for string 1 here, I'll try the example that's in the textbook for this one. I believe they have image 6 and img 10. So when we submit that, if you take a look in your textbook, you can find this particular function, string compare. It's at the top of page 275. I think I've lost my textbook here, unfortunately. But it's at the top of 275. And if you look there, you'll see that if the sequence is that if string number 1 is before string number 2, you get a negative number. If you get a positive number if string 1 comes after string 2, or a 0 if they're the same. Then for the natural order, by natural order, unfortunately, we don't know exactly what we entered here, but I entered image 6 and image 10. Well, if you look at those values, let's see if I can go back. Okay, natural ordering, we would expect 6 to come before 10, right? But if it's just comparing the strings, it compares the 6 and the 1 actually comes before 10, before the 6, I should say. 1 would come before the 6. But we don't want that to happen. If we want to get addresses in order, we want 6 to come before address of 10, for example. But that means we'd have to use natural ordering for that to happen. Otherwise, this would be first because 1 is less than 6. It's kind of a weird one to understand, but it's very important in addresses, for example. A couple more, 14. This allows us to use, this one is all about string. And this one will let us know if one string is in another string. And we can also do it case insensitively, and we can also reverse a string. So the string function it'll tell us where string 2 begins in string 1. String 1, when you're using this function here, this is a search function. We're looking for string 2 inside string 1. And string will return the index of where that starts in that string. We can do it case insensitively, and we can also do it from the end of the string, which is what this does. So let's give this one a try. And we'll try 7 score and 10 years ago. And I'll try entering 10. It starts from, as you can see, it started from 10. I entered 7 score and 10 years ago, and it went from 10 years ago and onward. If I take that back again and try and 10, it'll start there and go to the end of the string. And we can also make it case insensitive. So I could make this a capital A here, and that would work the same way, but only for the case insensitive one. Okay, once again, you can look all these up. Let's see if we can find that one here. That is so many of them here. Control F is a great way to search. str. And I'm not finding it. Try it up here. There it is. Yeah, you're searching a haystack and you're looking for a needle. Returns the part of the haystack string starting from the needle. So you get the part of the haystack from the needle onwards. So that's why we got what we got in our output. Look at 15. String pause. This one reports the index. It'll report where one string begins in another one. And we can also do this from the end of the string as well. So if I run this one, and we could try this same thing here. And this time I'll just put in the 10, and this should report where 10 starts. It should report the index of 10, position 16. So that works okay, and it works from the end of the string too. We tried a different value. I tried score, position 6. That's position 6. Or index 6 if you like.
So it doesn't count the spaces in between? It's just the characters?
No, the spaces are counted too. There's index 0, 1. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the space, 6 is the S.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, spaces count inside of a string. Now here's a really crazy one that this one can be dangerous because a hacker can use this to maliciously. Because looking at this particular case here, we've got a form with 3 text boxes: type equals text, type equals text, type equals text. But look at the names of the text boxes: subject, search, and replace. Well, if you use extract $_request, it automatically creates variables with these names, but with the $sign in front of it. So we get a $subject variable for whatever was in the text box of subject. We get a $search variable for whatever was entered into the search text box, and so on. $REPL variable for whatever was entered here. Now we can use that with string replace here in this case. What we can do is we can replace anything we want, search here what we want to replace, and here's what we want to replace it with. So if we give this a run, I think you can get the idea here. Okay, here we have a man managed a mango farm, and we're going to search for man and replace it with person, which of course comes out as nonsense, but we replaced every instance of man with person. And the variables were created automatically by extract $_request. And I hope you can see why that could be dangerous, because by viewing the source here, a malicious person could see what these variable names are and possibly use that to advantage. So this is not recommended, but we wanted to show it to you. And one more. And actually, this is pretty much the same thing. In fact, it looks like exactly the same thing. So, never mind on that one, I guess. So that's chapter 9. It's all about strings. Now, don't make any effort to memorize those things. Just know that you can look them up as you need them. But if there's something that you want to do with a string in PHP, it's very likely that that function already exists. So don't try to reinvent the wheel and do it the hard way by writing your own function. Look up in the manual and see if there's already one that exists. Because it's quite likely that there is one. Okay, now we also want to take a look at chapter 10, which is all about dates. So I'm going to close this one. I'll shut down all of these. I can close all of those. And we do have, this is the from the zip file for chapter 10. We've got a couple that we can look at. Chapter 10 is all about dates and times. And it's quite an interesting chapter. PHP has tremendous capabilities with dates and times. I'm going to turn to the document for a minute. And here it is. Make it a little bit larger. And everything is based on Greenwich time, Greenwich Mean Time, or GMT, which is based on the meridian that goes through Greenwich, England. And midnight in Greenwich is 00 UTC time, Coordinated Universal Time. The military uses this. They call it Zulu. And we civilians, of course, we use time zones. And those time zones are positive or negative offsets from the Greenwich meridian. I'll just pop up this, show you this map here, I believe. Here's the time zone map. And Greenwich, England is right here. So there's your 0. England is here, of course. And we're over here, exactly 5 hours away in Florida and most of the eastern United States, exactly 5 hours away. So whatever time it is here, it's 5 hours later than that in Greenwich, England. Okay, it's a 5-hour time difference. That always becomes apparent to me when I watch Wimbledon tennis, which is in Wembley or Wimbledon Stadium in England area, around London. Okay, so we use time zones. You can kill that window. We'll run our own. Now, in order to make this work, we have to make a change in PHP Ini. Dates and times are stored as 64-bit numbers. And PHP has a PHP Ini file, which has some important settings in it. And one of the things that we have to set is our time zone. And by default, as you can see from this graphic here, there's Europe and Berlin is the default. Well, in fact, I don't think there's any default in mine. So let's go and find our PHP Ini file and open it up with WordPad. And here's the best way to do that. If you've got Apache up and running, which of course I guess you have, you can hit Apache admin. Here's mine. Now I've got a bunch of projects in here, but if I look, we'll find in here somewhere the dashboard. There's the dashboard. And one of the things that's on the dashboard is PHP Info. This is PHP Info, which shows you all the default settings and what's installed with your version of PHP. And it's just an amazing amount of information about PHP in here. There are these things called modules that we haven't got into. We will later. I guess we did do PDO though. So I'm going to do Control F and type in PDO. Let's see what we can find about PDO. And hit here. See if we can get another one. Yeah, look, there's PDO support. It's all about PDO. This is why PDO worked for us when we were using MySQL database earlier, because it's installed. We have the drivers installed. So PHP Info just tells you an amazing number of things about your PHP installation. But one of them will tell us where PHP Ini is. So I'm going to do Control F, and I'm going to search for php.ini, and that'll tell me where it is. And as you can see, it is as indicated in the document. By default, it's in the PHP folder in the XAMPP folder. So I'm going to open that up. And you will see too, if I search for date here, I'm going to search for date, and you'll notice that by default, Europe and Berlin is the default for XAMPP. Well, we don't want that. We want to set that up for maybe Clearwater, Florida. So I think that's what the data that I've got. So I'm going to close that. And what we can do, I'll shut this right down. What we want to do is go to that folder in our XAMPP. And let's open up PHP Ini with WordPad, and we'll make these changes that are shown here to set our latitude and longitude and our time zone. So here's the way you want to do that. You can hit Explorer. If you tap Explorer, that'll take you to inside XAMPP. Now, if you have a Mac, I guess that doesn't work for you. So you just have to navigate to your XAMPP installation, open up the PHP folder, and scroll down until you find PHP Ini. There it is for me, PHP Ini. I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to open it with WordPad. Here's what it looks like. You got to be very careful you don't mess up some stuff that's in here, or your PHP won't work properly. But what we want to look for is the date. So I'm going to do Control F again. That's the best way to search. I'm going to enter what I want to type up there. I'm going to enter into this box here, date. And that takes me right to the section where we want to make the changes. Now, right now, my time zone isn't even specified. Now, to make it active, I have to take away the semicolon. That's like a comment inside the PHP Ini. And I want to set that to America/New_York. And then I want to set the latitude to what we have in the Word document. Find that again here. I want to set the latitude to be 27.9656. So I'll just copy that and change that value in my WordPad for the latitude. So I'm going to change that right there. Paste. But I also have to uncomment it by taking away the semicolon. And I have to do the same thing for the longitude. Uncomment it to make it active in PHP Ini. And then I need to go back and copy this value for the longitude and paste it in here, right there. And then I have to save this, of course. So file save. And the reason for doing this is now we've set our time zone, but we've also set the exact longitude and latitude of, I got it as close as I could to the Clearwater campus of Clearwater. And that should make certain things possible to us with dates and times. For example, it should help us get the sunset and sunrise times, which is an interesting thing that we can do with it. But let's just talk about times. All times are based on the number of seconds from midnight, January 1st, 1970. That's called the Unix epoch time. And everything it's stored as a number of seconds since that time. And all of the PHP date and time functions work on that. We've got a number of classes that we can work with. The date function is a good one. It returns a string as specified by a format string, and we have tremendous capabilities for formatting that string. We can specify a string by using these symbols here to express a date any way we want. There's all kinds of capability. Once again, don't memorize these, look them up as needed. If you want to get the month of the year, that's represented by a capital F inside the format string, or the date. Let's take a look at date 0 here. We've got date 0 up. Yeah. Okay, we've set the time zone. Here we're using the date function. Now, right here, that's an L. So let's see what that prints. Now, here's using a lot of the symbols. Look what we've got there. L, D, that's the day of the month. The S is going to be an ordinal value, so that'll show like the third. That'll be like RD or NTH. That's called the ordinal value. The letter O is a special character for formatting a date, so we don't want that to happen. We just want that to be the word of, so we put a backslash in front of it for that reason. This F symbol represents the month of the year. This represents the year. And here we have the hours, minutes, and seconds. And I believe this is going to give us our AM and PM, if I'm not mistaken. Now we can also use make time for the date. The make time function, this is the hour, minute, second, month of the year, day of the month, and year. So that should be July 1, 2000. July is the 7th month of the year. There's the first day of the month, and 2000. And they'll tell us what day it was. This L here will tell us what day of the week it was. So we've got great capability with these format strings with times. I'm just going to give this one a run so you can see how cool that is. Okay, it was a Monday. Today is Monday, the 11th of February. Well, it isn't really, but it is because of the time zone. So what I need to do is I need to restart my server. I'm going to restart my server. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop my Apache, start it again. And then I want to refresh this page. See what I get. I'm surprised that still shows Monday. I guess I have to restart it and run it again here. After we changed that time zone, I figured it would tell us that today is Sunday. It is still Sunday. Got the time. That's the time in England. So I see. We're not used. That's the time, but not in our time zone. It is Monday in Greenwich, England, and it's 4:05 in the morning in London, England. July 1st, 2000 was a Sunday. So that's the capabilities that you have, and all the formatting is done with all of those special characters that are here. You've got tremendous capability of how you want to display your dates and your times. Let's look at another one here. You also have these special constants. Let's run this one. Yeah. So when we're using this format, that's the month name. The J is the day of the month. The capital Y is the year. GIA is the hours, minutes, and whether it's AM or PM. So you get tremendous control. There's the European date format. And also an American date format. We'll do it a little differently. So you've got tremendous capabilities here. Here's an interesting one. 12/25/2019. That would be Christmas in 2019. And by putting 3 zeros here, we want, that's midnight, exactly midnight, hours, minutes, and seconds, 0. So let's see what day Christmas is on this year. We'll run this one. Falls on a Wednesday in 2019. And good news, there's 317 shopping days until Christmas.
Humbug.
Tremendous power and capability with dates and times. But once again, this isn't something that you want to memorize. Look up things as you need them, and you will need them, I think, for your assignment. I hope that helps. We're a bit over time. I'm sorry for keeping you up. Have a good one. I hope this helps. I think your assignment, I think you'll have fun with your assignment. Once again, if you have any trouble, get in touch with me.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good one.
Thank you.